Hey, this is Tash Street with Positive Out Loud. Today I have a very, very awesome guest today. I have Matthew Soule, and he is a fitness guru. He knows how to move his body. He's been teaching martial arts for how many years now?
Well, I've owned the school since 2010, so
Okay.
about 8 years.
About 8 years.
hmm
But what have you been doing before that? I mean, for yourself.
Well, I've trained martial arts for since I was a kid. My dad got me involved pretty young, at the age of about 6.
Uh-huh.
So I've been doing martial arts for a long time. I was an athlete my whole life,
Right.
dancer, all kinds of things. So, but for martial arts in terms of teaching and so forth, I really got into it in 2010.
2010.
Is when I took it over. Yeah, I had been teaching at the school before that for a couple of years.
And tell us, what's the name of your school?
The name of my school is Greenlake Martial Arts School, and it's located right here in Greenlake, Seattle.
I know it's right next to the water. I've been there, and it's an awesome studio. Lots of great energy, and Matt is just an amazing trainer. He makes, from what I've seen, he makes sure that people exactly get the skills and the fine tuning that they need in their body to, I don't know, what would you call it?
Well, really, it's about movement efficiency.
Okay.
Try to, it's that combination of trying to find the ability to execute technique so that they can keep themselves safe. I definitely operate on like a principle sort of mindset rather than like, hey, you got to know every little intricacy about this specific thing before you can execute. It's more about how can we operate under a series of principles so that we can get our bodies to move and scale up in sort of a gross motor type action, and then they can slowly refine and gain those additional fine motor skills over the course of a long-term training. So that's really what it's about.
So let's dive deep a little bit. Let's go back to your childhood, and let's go back to what was it that you really enjoyed that your father got you into? And you said you did some dancing and some sports, but what was it that really got your passion going?
For whatever reason, I've always been attracted to moving my body. I mean, that's probably like the fundamental underlying thing. I was always very athletically inclined. Always wanted to go play different sports and try different things. But my dad saw, I think, that athleticism very early. And he did a variety of different martial arts, 2 of which were kickboxing and another style of karate. And so when I got to age, about 6 years old, he enrolled me in that. And that was one of the early athletic things that I did. Around that same time, I was also enrolled in soccer. So I began playing that as well. And those are the first 2 things that really got me started.
So were you enrolled here in Seattle, or is it someplace else?
Oh, I grew up in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Oh, New Mexico.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So and when did you move here to Seattle?
I moved to Seattle in 2000, I think first part of 2008 is when I first moved up here during the financial crisis.
It's probably the best time to buy a house in Seattle.
Yeah.
When we moved up from Tacoma to Seattle, we bought our house around that time frame, and we really lucked out.
Yeah. There's some good opportunities and some difficulties around that time as well.
Yeah. So what did you do before you started the gym? What were you doing before that as your profession?
Sure. At that exact time, I was actually in doing some financial work, helping people, get into homes, basically, doing mortgages and different things. I was also, what actually brought me up here was taking a job to help people get benefits for home mortgages, real estate services, that kind of thing. And I would go into different companies and so forth and offer them and their employees access to better rates or better services through relationships there.
So how is that compared to what you're doing now?
Well, you can't really picture it.
I can't see you doing that. I mean, we all go through the process of where we are today, but tell me, what was that like leaving that and deciding to do this?
I couldn't wait. Is the bottom line. So that job, although I did it for a number of years, really was a placeholder. It wasn't something that I was super passionate about. Right. It was something that I found that I was pretty good at. And it allowed me to fund other sort of art expressions in my life. I had gone to film school back in 2005, and I was really pursuing a career doing that, doing film stuff, doing some writing and different things, and that's really what I was passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
And but I got to pay the bills, and at that time, it wasn't really paying the bills.
Right.
So I was using some of the financial stuff as a way to fund my other endeavors in life. For martial arts, really, I was mostly just a practitioner. I wasn't really doing a teaching role or anything, but it always stayed with me. I was training in wherever I lived,
Mm-hmm.
At a variety of different martial arts schools. So that was always hovering in the background as well.
So ever since like 6 years old, you've been training in martial arts, some form or another, right?
More or less.
Right.
I mean, there's certainly breaks. I played highly competitive soccer,
Mm-hmm.
so that definitely dominated time.
Right.
And I didn't really compete in martial art. It was always just something that I was drawn to. Albuquerque, where I grew up, it wasn't the friendliest of places always. There was a lot of bullies that were involved in my life. And I think it's just, there's a lot of fighting culture there.
Mm-hmm.
So martial arts, as I was younger, was always...
Let's stop there for a second, because I
Sure.
want to dive deep into that.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
So you said there's a lot of bullies. So
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about why were you bullied and what was going on with that?
Part of that has been my quest to figure out. I mean, that's some of the thing that in martial arts, I've always tried to look at. What makes it that another human being wants to, dig into somebody else? And I think what I find is that, one, there's a lot of insecurity on the part of the bully. I think that's pretty obvious. In my particular circumstance, for whatever reason, I was just always kind of an outsider. I walked a little bit to the beat of my own drum, you could say. All throughout school, I was always doing combination things that were seen as other. For example, I would be in drama and sports. And those two things from the group mentality didn't jive together.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would be sort of outcast on that side. I think some of those combinations really, really put it out there. I was also always a defender of other people, like from a very early age. So I can recall like some of my friends that were, not as cool, you could say, weren't as popular or something. If they'd get picked on, I would immediately go to defend them. Mm-hmm. And that was often, it got a lot of backlash. Groups of guys that wanted to bully other kids would then turn to me and bully me for sticking up for those people.
Right.
And so I kind of just accepted that role, and it just kind of went forward, from there.
There is that stereotype with the jocks. They kind of stick together. It's kind of like a group mentality where they want to feel like powerful, and so they bully other people. So that kind of is what it was like, right?
Yeah, very much so.
Wow.
Very much so. And Albuquerque was very much, it had a fighting culture to it. It's very popular for boxing. At this point, it's got some of the best MMA in the world.
Wow.
Some of the top coaches like Greg Jackson, his gym. I mean, it's ingrained in the culture there. And so I think also people just have a little bit more edge to them in that sort of thing, and that fuels the desire to fight as well. And so I always felt like I needed to have skills to defend myself.
Right.
And so I was really always attracted to different martial arts because of that, very practical martial arts. Mm-hmm. So when you combine that with some of the guys that were just intent on bullying, it's kind of a recipe for disaster in a lot of ways.
Right.
And it caused a lot of problems growing up,
So did you get in certain fights when you were growing up? Or?
Yeah, quite a bit. Yeah.
Quite a bit. So how did that pan out? I mean, did you get hurt badly? Were you able to defend yourself because of your training? How did that work?
I did pretty well for the most part.
Yeah.
I was always a pretty athletic kid. I was always pretty strong. I think that helped. I was always a little bit bigger. That also helped. Right. But I also learned a lot of how to de-escalate certain things and avoid certain situations as well. I would say that was a huge part of my experience growing up. So I definitely would fight. That happened. But I also, as I got a little bit older, I also learned to avoid a lot of those situations as well, or steer them down or de-escalate it. And so, for what it's worth. Those bring back some a lot of different memories. As you're asking me these questions, I can feel and yeah, I can just place myself in a number of different circumstances that were really uncomfortable,
Right. So
and difficult, and so
that
forth.
probably like fuels your passion of what you're doing now to help other people be able
Absolutely.
to defend themselves and not get into those certain situations. So tell us a little bit about some of the classes that you do to help, specifically women or people who aren't as perceived as strong.
Yeah. Well, so the primary classes that I've got are self-defense. Everything I teach is self-defense. So we don't teach from a sport context.
Okay.
We definitely are looking to help people in a survival self-defense situation. So if you find yourself in a need of self-defense, what is the order and process to where you can do that on the highest percentage level? So I teach a style called Chunjo is my primary style.
Mm-hmm.
And it is all self-defense oriented, very practical martial art. And it's built for anybody, men, women, small, big. It's based on leverage and so forth. And it's got a very clear strategy to it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our primary stuff. So I teach those classes throughout the week.
So what's Junjo? Where does that originate from?
It's a local style here in Seattle. And it was developed by John Biel, mm-hmm. who is one of Bruce Lee's, James DeMille was one of Bruce Lee's first students. Mm-hmm. And John was a black belt under James DeMille. Mm-hmm. He also studied with a martial artist named Ed Hart. Okay. And Ed Hart was also one of Bruce Lee's first students. Oh, wow. And so those guys were boxers. Both of them were boxers. Mm-hmm. Ed was a professional boxer. And Ed was also a judo guy. So a lot of cross training there. Back in 1980, around there, John developed this style and went out on his own. And so we've been there, in fact, in Greenlake for nearly 40 years, teaching this method. So
the person that owned the Greenlake martial arts before you was there for a certain amount of years, and then you just took it over about 10 years ago, right?
Yeah. I'm actually the third owner.
Oh, you're the third owner?
Yeah.
Cool.
So we've got a lot of rich history here. John actually sold it to another gentleman named Mark, mm-hmm. and I actually took it over from Mark in 2010.
So tell us a little bit about how that felt when you decided, I'm going to do this, I'm going to teach this. Was there a certain type of program you had to go through in order to become a trainer, or how does that work?
Yeah. Well, for the school at that time, mm-hmm. What was allowed was you could come on as what's called a Sihing once you get to a certain advanced level in your own practice. Mm-hmm. And a Sihing just means older brother. And you basically are an assistant instructor. And so when I got to the level where that's possible, I said, hey, could I be involved in teaching this? Mm-hmm. And Mark at that time was really receptive. He said, yeah, we'd love to have you. You've been a great student. And so I stepped into that role. And actually within the first probably few months, I think that I was an assistant instructor at that time, I learned that the school was going to be sold.
Oh, wow.
Mark was actually going to move to the East Coast and, carry on with his wife there.
So, Matt, tell me a little bit about how did that feel when you decided, you're going to take it over? Did it feel, I know you were probably making, good money, whatever you were doing before that.
Yep.
So you had to make that leap. And I know a lot of people out there are wanting to make a leap from where they are to their passion. So
sure.
Tell us a little bit about how you did that on a level where you felt safe to do that. Or maybe you didn't feel safe. Maybe you just took a total risk,
Honestly, I took a little bit of a risk. I wasn't very happy in my job. I was making money. I was doing very well. Yeah. But it wasn't serving. I wasn't putting my true self out there doing that job. It was a job almost solely for money. Right. At that time, I was the sole income earner for a family of 4. So it was important that I was carrying that and so forth. But when I saw the opportunity to take over the school, there's something that just came over me, a passion. I said, I have to do this. And I don't know where that came from, but I just went after it. And I approached Mark and I said, how can I take it over? How can we work this out? And he was gracious enough to work with me. And, we got John involved, the original founder and so forth. He wanted to make a comeback, so I brought him back to help teach classes and help with the transition, which was fantastic because he's an extraordinary instructor. and personality, just to bring to the table. So we just put it together, and it was scary. I'm not going to lie to you. It was really scary because the school was not earning money enough for 4 people. So I put full fuel into this effort.
You would have to, right, to get more people in there so you can get more money going in the business, right?
Yep, absolutely. And it was coming out of the recession. So coming out of that recession, the school was suffering. I mean, it did not have that many students. From when it's like, from at its top point, it was a third of where it was, And
so what did you do to get it momentum going? Tell us something, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are looking to start a business and they need to know how much work it takes to get that going.
Absolutely. One, I lived and breathed this thing. I talked about it to everybody I could talk to.
Yeah.
I really tried to get one-on-one engagement with all the students. I created a referral program. I started to market in unique ways, and I tried everything for marketing, everything from putting demonstrations together to really focusing on online content, just in terms of, what does the website look like? Who are we trying to reach? Who's our target marketing? Any kind of things in that nature, making sure that we're ranked on the #1 page of Google. That becomes important locally.
Yeah.
So although the previous owner was doing well in terms of a little bit of SEO stuff, that became one of my primary endeavors. Really pushed that forward. And so
and back then, that a lot of people weren't really even paying attention to that, so that was a great way to start. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And every time when Google came out with a new thing, like they allowed stars to come up on, for reviews and so forth, we got 5 reviews the first. So we stood out, with the gold stars at the beginning. Any little thing like that we could find, I pushed forward.
Right.
And so that really helped. I ended up more than doubling the school in the first year. And bringing it up to a much more sufficient pace, and continue to push it upward from there. And so it's been really positive for us.
So what things are you doing now to keep that momentum going? What type of marketing, or what type of way are you relating with everybody that comes in? And just tell me a little bit about how that's working now.
One of the biggest things that I wanted to do is create a community of people that really look out for each other and that feel like a family. I feel that most of our lives are so separate today. We're not as interrelated, relying on one another as, say, we were if we're all trying to be there for survival, evolutionarily speaking. So how can we create really strong bonds between each other and feel, family oriented? So I've tried to create a family atmosphere. I think that's one of the biggest things that I've tried to do. I've also tried to make sure that I'm teaching the most relevant things. So I've really pushed forward on my own training in a number of different ways. That's what got me into a lot of the jiu-jitsu stuff, training with other coaches and trainers in the area, and even driving as far as, things like Portland to train with Nathan Orchard at the time. Although, he's up here now, so that's pretty cool.
Who's Nathan Orchard?
Nathan Orchard's a 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and he has had a pretty profound influence on me for Jiu-Jitsu and so forth. But just reaching out and getting as much training and exposure that I can, and taking it back to the school.
You have mentors as well. I mean, you're just not stopping where you are now and just training people. You got to keep growing. And how important is that for you to keep growing as an individual, as a soul, on the soul level? What is that like for you? What kind of things do you do?
It's absolutely critical. I want to be a forever learner. I would say what resonates with me very much is sort of this idea of intentional evolution. And so I seek mentors that are in that vein. Wim Hof is a really big one. That he drew me to him for that reason, looking for him as a mentor. But they're a critical role in my life, for sure. Trying to find people that have mastered particular things that I'm interested in, so that I can continue to grow as a human being, and then share that, whatever I experience, with others, so that hopefully it helps them on their path as they're looking for mastery or whatever it is in their own life, or to become better at whatever, or more connected, anything.
So tell us a little bit about the Wim Hof method. I mean, you're a trainer. I think you were the first trainer here in Seattle, right?
Yep.
And you've been doing it for a while, and I know you had to go through a lot of different training with Wim Hof himself. and you had to go to. Did you go overseas to go get trained to be
So
certified, or how did that work?
sure. Fortunately, he actually came here. So,
Okay.
as part of the first group of U.S. instructors, we were supposed to go overseas, and they had enough turnout for our group that they decided to actually bring it here to the States.
Nice.
So that's been a real positive.
Mm-hmm.
We actually did our master module in Winter Park, Colorado.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So that was pretty exciting.
So I want you to tell our viewers, what was that like? What did you have to do? Because those things are intense.
Super intense.
Tell me a little bit about that. I want to know.
Yeah. So Wim, I'm fascinated by Wim Hof. He's somebody that carries his passion absolutely forward, and he exists and lives in the full present. Basically at all times. It's really exciting. When I showed up to my master module, and this is the way that you complete your certification in the academy for the Wim Hof Method, we showed up in Winter Park, and we're driving around, and one of the first things that he takes us to is to get in the cold. And we show up to this lake. I can't even recall exactly the lake. I've got
What, first thing you have to get in the cold? Did you do any breathing or anything?
No, we just show up. He's like, we're gonna find some water. He shows up for this day. This is the first day, and we get to this lake, and we're outside.
How cold was it there?
Freezing. It's windy. It's blistering. It's probably in the 30s for sure.
It's like where you took us. I remember that.
That's right. You're right. It was windy that day. It was.
Water I ever gotten into, I swear to God.
Yeah. So we're up there. We're at elevation in Winter Park, and he decides he's like, we just pull over the vans. I'm not sure how they found the lake.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This is November in Colorado at elevation. There's lots of snow here, and we get out, and the wind is whipping. And the water, somebody had gunned the water, I think, in the high 30s or something. So the water's cold. Yeah. I didn't even have a swimsuit. So I've got the film from that day, and it's kind of I just wore my underwear.
That's Wim for you.
There you go. He's like, you got to be prepared. Funny thing, after that, and the Hoffs give me a hard time a little bit about this, but I always show them, I wear my swimsuit almost always. Anytime I'm with, around those folks, I've got a swimsuit underneath any pants, any sweatpants, any jeans. I'm ready to go at this point.
Yeah.
I always try to be prepared. But no, we got in the water, and he was actually, it was not super, he didn't push us super hard. I mean, it was already cold. He just wanted us to have a group experience. We did a few, hoo-ha's on the beach, a little bit of warm up, but we didn't do rounds of breathing or anything before. We were just kind of, I think, expected to be ready to go.
And hoo-ha's, for anybody who doesn't know what that means, it's like you get in this, like a horse stance, and you're moving your whole body to warm it up. Because when you come out of that water, you want to warm your body up as soon as you can.
That's right. That little bit of light activity helps the metabolic process and heats you right up. So we went into the water. We had a good experience, and we came out, and that was day one. Day two was much more intense. We had gone, we went out for a walk for what we thought was going to be about a 15-minute walk at dawn, sunrise there. And turned out to be a 45-minute walk. And many of us were shirtless or...
but you were prepared with a backpack, right? You had, just in case?
We had a couple of things. Not everybody had that. We thought we were going to just go out for a short walk. And this is led by one of the head instructors there that was helping with the module. His name was Casper. And we walked for, I think, like 45 minutes. And it's cold. It was 26 degrees outside. Fahrenheit. So we walked for about 45 minutes, and we show up to this, iced over fed, like the stream was, had ice, over as it was feeding the lake, it was freezing cold, and the sun's not up yet. And he's like, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to get in the water. And none of us were expecting to get in the water. We weren't prepared for this at the beginning. My heart is beating
just thinking about that.
It was, and at the same token, Casper knew that we were ready. You know, we
Yeah.
didn't know we were ready. I'll tell you right now. Yeah, but or at least as a group whole, you know, we weren't prepared for it. But Casper had us get into this water, and it brought up so many things for me. The water was absolutely freezing. As I sat down, my body just clenched. You know, really tight. In certain places, I just had just incredible tension in my body. My muscles were locking up. And for the next 7.5 minutes in that water, all I could do is just breathe and focus. I've never been so pulled to the present 100% that I had to be in that moment. And it was really informative. It also shifted my physiology. You know, from then on, I've never had, I would say, a really difficult experience in the cold after that to date.
It's like you had to go on the deep end in order to be okay with it after that.
That's right.
Yeah.
And bear in mind, I have been training. You know, I was conditioned to the cold, so this isn't like I'm totally unconditioned or anything. But it was an experience that really changed a lot for me.
So you think when you got into that cold water that was so cold like that, do you think it just releases certain things out of your body, like certain traumas, or what exactly does it do? So people out there know.
Yeah, for me, gosh, I had a series of emotions come up that I'd never experienced in the cold up to that point. Up to that point, every time I got in the cold, sometimes, I would laugh like a hyena, I'd be a little bit goofy. Sometimes I'd mostly just excited.
Yeah.
It was the experiences that I had in the cold prior to that. Or just a little bit of resistance. Like at the very beginning, I just, maybe resisted a little bit and then eventually made it into that happy state. But this one, it brought up everything from anger, to a fear, dealing with fear, trying to find out on a very personal level, do I have the control in this circumstance? Like it brought up a lot of different things that were very, very deep for me. And I think for a lot of other people too, yeah, dealing with some of the, whatever we're holding on to physically, to our emotional state, to our past trauma, to that fear, whatever it might be. A lot of people had that really strong experience, and so did I. And coming out of it, gosh, it taught me a lot about where I was at, emotionally and so forth. And I think that, at the time when I was in the Wim Hof Academy, finishing that master module, I was coming out of a divorce, of a lot of things. I think all of it sort of surfaced in that moment. A lot of the emotional stuff that I've been through recently, and it just manifested itself in a very physical way. And it taught me so clearly, hey, it's time to just breathe and let go. And that's all I could focus on for that time in that water.
Breathe and let go. That's amazing.
Breathe and let go.
With any type of situation we're dealing with in our life, a lot of times we're just holding on to it, right? We're ruminating it about this or that in our mind, and we're getting more resentful, and to get in the cold water at 26 degrees or whatever made you let it all go. How did you feel after that? I mean, how did you feel about the divorce after that? Was it easier? Was it lighter?
Yes. I mean, sort of everything got a little bit better perspective.
Wow.
And the practice of the Wim Hof method in the cold is while you're in the cold water, you're practicing focus and peace, that rest or that letting go in the midst of the stress, right? So we're using that stress tool to calm and relax and getting that dual state. And that really applies to all sorts of things in our lives. And it really taught me to process whatever emotional state that was going on, to shift it to a nice calm state. And that stays with you. It stays with you in other circumstances of your life. So yeah, absolutely.
When I went to the advanced workshop, we went to Clay Ellum, right?
Yeah.
I can remember we did some major breath work where we would just breathe for, I don't even know how minutes it was, but we all would get on the ground and he would guide us through this breathing with music, and a lot of us during that process had an emotional release just from breathing, not even getting in the cold yet.
Yeah.
So I think that when you put those two together, the breathing and the cold, I mean, God, things just kind of just like, it's gone. You know, for
Absolutely.
me, I mean, I don't know what I was crying about. I had all these tears just come out,
Hmm.
and I wasn't trying to judge it or like, what's this about? Where does this come from? I just let it go.
Yeah.
I was cool after that. It's like I really loved going to that advanced workshop. I had a great time.
Oh, I'm so happy to hear
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. I love those workshops because they bind us really strongly together.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates and promotes a group flow
Mm-hmm.
experience.
Mm-hmm.
You know, neurochemically, that's happening.
Right.
You get to connect to people on a really deep emotional level. You get to
Mm-hmm.
physically process whatever that emotional state that's happening in your body.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really powerful thing. Wim talks about that a lot.
Yeah.
Just in terms of like, you know, you don't necessarily need to be talking about it to have psychotherapy about something.
No.
And this is not to knock psychotherapy,
Right.
but
Right.
it's, you can actually process a lot of that really difficulty or whatever you're holding on to, whatever's inside there,
Mm-hmm.
through this physical thing. And the breath work is powerful to do that.
Oh my God.
And the cold is powerful to do that. When you combine the two, you
Mm-hmm.
get this magical experience.
And you're telling me this, and I'm loving it because I've been kind of procrastinating. Like I kind of haven't been doing it for a while, for like a couple months. So it's like I really
Okay.
want to get back into it.
Yeah. Consistency, right?
Yeah.
It's tough to have a consistent practice sometimes.
And I feel I'm connected with all those people at that advanced workshop still on Facebook, where we all
Yeah.
talk still, and
That's
we're
great.
connected because we were able to connect on a deep level through the breath and through the cold water, and we were in the same house together for, what was it, 3 days?
Yeah.
2 or 3 days. And you cooked for us. You made like these organic grass-fed, what was it? I think you had beef or
Yeah, I probably had beef. Did I bring some elk? I usually bring some elk and salmon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That you hunted yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. All sourced. You know.
It was great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every good time. So let's go back a little bit to what you're doing with those classes now, so people know if they're interested.
Sure.
You know, what when do you usually do it? What type of classes do you do, and how does that work? So.
Excellent. So I teach a variety of classes for the Wim Hof Method. We try to do monthly workshops.
Okay.
And so that typically falls on the second Sunday of every month, certainly through the winter time. Some of the schedule has been a little bit modified, so I do want you to check out the website, innerfireseattle.com, because I've been invited to be actually teaching with Wim on the, representing the academy, joining him at his live events.
Oh my God, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's throwing it off a little bit, but those are super exciting opportunities, and I'm very grateful. But
it's
it looks like
growing and expanding. It's just like wildfire, because it works.
Yes.
It works.
Yeah. It works absolutely, and it's a simple method, and it's something that people can do very, very easily. Just get on board.
The idea of getting in the cold water at first for me was pretty challenging.
Yeah,
and
it is.
Still, I mean, it's still to the point. I mean, the breathing I love, but it just takes baby steps, and once you get into it, you just don't want to stop. So because you love the effects afterwards, you feel so relaxed.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I do the monthly workshops, and those are typically held right here in Seattle, and sometimes we'll get into the lake.
Okay.
And I've also run them recently where we're getting into the ice tub in Greenlake Martial Arts School.
Okay.
So we set up the tub inside of there. We had a really great workshop in September where we had people getting in the ice tub, and we got that water down cold.
Oh my God.
It was exciting, but very powerful experiences for everybody that attended on that one. So that was really cool. I also do, like corporate training, where we try to promote group flow and team building exercises. It's really powerful to see people that normally work together but don't really know each other on a personal level. When they get together and they do these type of workshops, all of a sudden you're connected. Just in a short time together, you have this really powerful experience, and it bonds people.
Right.
So that's really powerful. And then, of course, I do my retreats that you've been on. Yeah, the advanced retreats.
Yeah.
And those are, in so many ways, some of my favorite things to do, because we get to just step outside of ourselves in our daily life and get in super deep in a way that there's just not a lot of time for many times. We do our advanced breathing protocols, really connect. We get a lot of cold exposure, as you know, a lot of cold exposure.
It's too bad it wasn't longer, but you only can do so much as you can do, and people have to get back to their daily lives and things like that. So
absolutely.
But I mean, if you want to be a trainer, of course, you have to go through pretty intensive, week long or?
You mean to graduate from the Wim Hof Method? Yeah. So there's 3 parts to become an instructor. You go through a basic module, then you go to an advanced module, and then you finalize it with the master module. And that master module lasts about a week.
Oh wow.
And so actually the recent set of instructors, they just graduated. I was down at Mount Hood teaching the next set of instructors. So
one of them is Mal.
Yeah. Mal was in the group. So that was pretty cool.
Mal,
yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations. And so that was really fantastic to see that group.
So we have a few more trainers here in Seattle then, which is awesome, yeah.
It's great. So in the Washington area, I think we've got close to 4 or 5 now.
Oh, great.
Yeah. So this thing is growing fast, and it gives us an opportunity to really reach out and make hopefully a profound influence in people's lives. I know it's been a profound influence in the trainers that I've met and the people that have participated so far. So.
Right. So I'm kind of fascinated with the women's self-defense, what you're teaching now. So it seems like you really brought that on when you started taking on the gym. So tell us a little bit about that and why you're so passionate about it.
Women's self-defense has been a really important topic for me to bring into the school and make it a regular thing. We taught some women's self-defense now and again at the school, but as far as I recall or am aware, it wasn't super consistent. I've made it very consistent. We've got it on a quarterly basis. We do workshops so that we bring women there. I do private trainings for women's self-defense on a regular basis. I do corporate workshops for that.
Oh, wow.
And I've taught, everybody in the area that lots of different groups have called us in. I'm very passionate about it, Taz, because, this is something that really resonates and hits home with me on a personal level. My mom went through a situation when I was younger, an abusive situation, and we had a lot of chaos growing up.
Right.
And I got to witness that, and it deeply affected me. And at the time, as a young boy, seeing that.
How old were you then?
Probably 7, 8, 9. For about 2 or 3 years there is when the majority of it was going on.
So it was constant.
For a couple of years there, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's hard.
And so, seeing and experiencing that, I felt helpless. I'm a young kid, and you want to be able to do something about it, and not being able to do something at that age was really difficult. And surrounding that, you feel shame.
Yeah.
You feel you just want to do more. And so I've spent a big part of my life, trying to figure that out and be proactive about it so that I can empower myself and frankly empower others to get over their own difficulties. Or avoid the potential difficulties, hopefully, with some good knowledge. And so when I took this over, I wanted to make sure that women's self-defense was one of the primary things. And so we've really put a lot of effort into creating, excellent workshops and empowering women to. Which
is so important right now with the culture the way it is now with the administration, and it's just really, really sad.
Yeah.
Really sad.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And women need to feel more empowered. Because of the consciousness that's out there now where people think they can get away with things, and which is totally unacceptable. And I love what you're doing. I love that you're bringing this out there for women to feel more empowered, because in the end, we want to go out on the street and feel safe, and we want to feel safe in our own homes, and wherever that may be. You never know when something might happen.
Absolutely.
So to empower women that way and make them feel like superwomen is just amazing.
Yeah, it's super important to me, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well,
and
thank
you have a daughter too, right?
Yeah, and I've got a young daughter, and I want to make sure that she lives in a world where she feels empowered and knows she's got the right to protect herself.
Yeah.
So many women tell me that they're, that's a worry, that they don't know if they have the right to do it. And not that they don't have the right, but a lot of the feedback is almost along those lines. It's almost like, am I worth hurting somebody else to protect myself? That's a concern. And not that we're trying to promote hurting others, but to be able to protect yourself is
You may have to hurt somebody.
That's
to do
right.
that, right.
You might have to do that.
Right, right.
And to sort of orient around that is really important. And
It's kind of like the police officer mentality. They know that that's why they have all those weapons on them, because they have to stop people from hurting other people.
That's right. That's right. It's that simple.
Same concept, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I want to get it out there to where, you know, women just know, absolutely, I can protect myself. These are the steps to do it. We all have the machinery to protect ourselves, you know, the basic physiology.
Yeah.
It's just tying into that, tapping into it, and then on an emotional and mental level, understanding the resolve of what it takes, you know, and of when you're in those situations, when to respond, how to keep yourself safe.
So, for instance, if a woman's walking on the street by themselves and they hear somebody in the back and they feel like, you get that intuition where somebody's kind of after you or whatever. And
absolutely,
what's the best thing for them to do in that situation? Do they kind of go somewhere else? What do you think is the best thing for them to do if they think somebody's following them?
Okay, so in a following situation, yeah, because everything has context.
Yeah, of course.
But in a following situation, one of the biggest things that I encourage is to uncloak the mystery of this person, right? Okay. So in other words, in a strong posture, turn around, look, and if you're pretty sure they're following you, just tell them, stop following me. Awesome. Be really clear,
right.
Clear voice,
right.
And then move on. Don't wait around, move on, get somewhere safe. Okay. In certain contexts where you feel like you may need to run. Mm-hmm. It's not time to be self-conscious. If you feel like that's the best thing at that moment, it's time to do it. Right. So those are the two things that I typically advise. Many people that are looking to attack a woman, follower, to do this kind of thing, they want to have some level of shrouded mystery. They want to be able to do it with surprise. They want to take advantage, right? So if we can call out that as early as possible, good. And if you're tied into your intuition, you can recognize that situation much earlier. Mm-hmm. So that's a really big positive as well.
Yeah, this one situation, we were walking down Broadway, Capitol Hill, me and my wife, I think it was probably about 3 or 4 years ago, eating ice cream, and out of the blue, this woman just punches her in the face. We didn't even know it was going to happen.
Your wife?
That was the surprise. Yeah. Punches her in the face and just keeps walking. I think the woman was kind of crazy and, not mentally there.
Yeah.
And she kept walking, and then, of course, her, thing to do is to want to get back, right? And I'm like, no, it's not worth it. So we went over there and to see if she was okay, and she ended up being okay and everything. But you just never know. You just don't never know.
Yeah.
Because what if that woman kept coming at her? Then what would we do, right?
Right.
But now she's in Krav Maga, so she has all kinds of skills. She can handle herself now. But
yeah,
I think that's kind of what got her motivated to do that, to get into the self-defense classes. So
it's
like until you don't want to get in that situation, folks.
No, you certainly don't. Well, and one thing I would like to ask, if what kind of situational awareness do you guys carry forward after that experience?
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because although
mine is actually pretty good, because I used to be in law enforcement. I used to be a law enforcement officer. But when you're just walking around on a Sunday afternoon eating ice cream, you're just not.
You're not in that headspace.
No.
Right. Yeah. Well, totally fair. Fair. Yeah. A lot of folks ask me, in terms of like, do I have to stay super vigilant all the time, looking? Oh, is it going to be?
But that's not a good way to live either.
No, that's not a good way, and actually, that takes you away from your intuition, right? That intuition where you're talking about sort of the spidey sense creeping up. You're much more tied into it if you're relaxed, if you're perceptive. It's tough if you're on a Sunday afternoon eating ice cream, just enjoying your moment together, because your awareness isn't out. Yeah. It's here. It's with your family and so forth. So that's a difficulty. But one thing I try to do is I'm always scanning. I mean, not in a hypervigilant way. I just keep my awareness out. And it allows.
You don't want to do this hunched over walking. You want people to know that you're powerful, right?
That's right. There was a great study that's been cited for almost tons of women's self-defense, different things, but it's cited in a number of different psychology articles. It was basically an experiment that was done where they took perpetrators of violent crime and they showed them video of people walking. That's it. And they said, pick your victim. And these guys over and over picked the same people.
Same type of body movements and stuff. Yeah,
that's right. And it was the people that were distracted. It was the people that were hunched over. It was the people that had a weird walk or a limp. You know, in other words, the people that are potentially vulnerable.
Yeah, of course. Right.
And so one of the simplest things you can do...
Just like a lion would do out in the wild. Get the slowest, whatever, elk or...
That's right. Yeah. That's right. You know, and so if you can just have that posture and that presence... I mean, be clear with your walk, be clear with your voice, you know, pay attention. Some of those simple things can really carry profoundly for your safety.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about your classes for the women's self-defense. How does that work? How long?
Yeah, so I hold workshops on a quarterly basis, and we run an intro class, which is 2 hours long, and it's really the essentials of self-defense. We teach you about some of the psychology of fear, how to recognize and avoid dangerous situations, and then, of course, we teach you the physical skills, should it come down to that. We also offer focus classes, and in the subsequent focus classes that are on, you know, the next weekends, we're going to dig into scenarios. We actually do scenario work and really workshop specific things like how to get up from the down position if you find yourself on the ground, or how to recover back to your feet. You know, all of that kind of thing. Or if you're stuck in an elevator, if you're stuck in a hallway, if you're stuck...
If you have a knife to you, you know, whatever, right?
Yeah. And so we really dig in to the extent possible that we can get into the material. So there's a saying, of course, that to teach nothing, you teach everything. So we're not trying to teach everything. We're trying to teach the essentials that a student can walk away with some valuable skills that they can use in a real life situation when they walk out.
And of course, with your martial arts training, that just, if people want to do that, that's just more advanced training that they can learn how to protect themselves as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So recently we've started women's class, so women's only class, where they can come every Thursday at 7:30.
Okay.
And it's right now it's an open training format but for women only, and it's being done by one of my great female instructors. Her name is Fiona. Fiona Morgan. She's awesome. She's been with the school a long time, and so she teaches and heads that up, along with her co-teacher Emma Randall, who's also a long-time martial art practitioner. So
women feel comfortable just coming in by, you know, as a group.
Absolutely. And they focus on adaptations that are specific for women, you know, and it's really helpful. The martial art that I teach, Taz, is all about adaptation. It's built on leverage. It's built on these things where you don't have to be the strongest, the fastest, right? Those are essential. But there's also this element that you're going to adapt maybe a little bit different. You maybe have some slight different considerations as a female than you would as, say, like a male like me that's 6'2", you know, a large person. Not saying that I don't have the need to defend myself, because I absolutely do, but some of the way I express my movement is going to be different than the way, say, a smaller female that's only 120 pounds is going to express her movement. Those are different things. So we focus on that on those Thursdays.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you have classes throughout the week, all week long, pretty much.
Yeah, daily, except for Sunday.
Yeah, you need a day off.
Yeah, once in a while. Once in a while.
6 and just relax and enjoy yourself. So.
Absolutely.
Man, this has been awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I really appreciate it.
For letting me come to your home and to talk about this and to get this positive message out to people that they are powerful, they can defend themselves, and with the right skills and knowledge, you're as powerful as you can be. So. Yeah. Any last words that you want to put out there to people for them to feel more empowered, or to feel like, you know, that they are unstoppable? Yeah, absolutely. I love it. So what I'd encourage folks is that you connect to yourself, right? When we connect deeply to our own physiology, our own emotional state, we can bring out the best in us and deliver that true expression of ourselves.
And I really encourage you to do that. And finding methods to support that is super important. Often it's a combination of movement and consciousness. When you put them together, this embodied consciousness, you have an opportunity for that expression. Good luck, go forward, and just take control.
And we will definitely put some links down below so you can check out the classes. You can check out the Wim Hof breathing. In fact, I've done all the Wim Hof stuff, and I think I'm going to move over to the self-defense because I definitely need some more of that. So I hope to see you there at the classes. And if you guys have any questions, just shoot them down below, and we'll be sure to get back with you. And this has been quite a blast. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Taz. I really appreciate it.
Awesome.
All right.